person who is very cruel is regarded as dead, even while living. But while he's living or after his death, everyone condemns him. And after death, a person in the bodily concept of life is undoubtedly transferred to the hell known as Anthatma.
A person who is very cruel. Sukhdev Goswami said, deliberating in this way, Kamsa, although determined to continue the enmity towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead, refrained from the vicious killing of his sister. He decided to wait until the Lord was born and then do what was needed.
Then read 24, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
24.
While sitting on his throne or in his sitting room, while lying on his bed, or indeed while situated anywhere, or while eating, sleeping, or walking, Kamsa saw only his enemy, the Supreme Lord, Rishikesha. In other words, by thinking of his all-pervading enemy, Kamsa became unfavorably Krishna conscious.
Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, accompanied by great
No,
sages.
until 24. I mean, okay,
What
yeah,
verse we are focusing on?
24. Ashni samvisam Bhunjana parayatan mahim Chintyano Rishikesham Apashyatan mayam jagat Ashina samvisham stishtan Bhunjana parayatan mahim Chintyano Rishikesham Apashyatan mayam jagat Ashina samvisham stishtan Bhunjana parayatan mahim Chintyano Rishikesham Apashyatan mayam jagat Ashina samvisham stishtan Chintayano Rishikesham Apayashtan mayam jagat
Would you like to read the first?
That's fine.
You were better than myself. Oh, okay. First time. Do I go more?
Yeah, no.
Oh.
Asina samvisham stishtan. Then, next. That's me.
Bunjana parayatan mahim.
Chintayano Rishikesham
Apashyatan mayam jagat Ashama sam vishmasam tisham
Samvisham stishtan Bhunjana parayatan mahim Chintayano Rishikesham Apashyatanmayam Jagat
Asinasam Vishamstishthan
Janakaritam Mahim
Chintayalo Rishikesham Tapasyatanmayam Jagat.
Done?
Mangla could not recite. Ashina?
Ashina Samvisham Stishtan Bunjana Pariyatan Mahim Chintayano Rishikesham Apashyatan Mayam Jagat. Word to word all together, please. Ashina, while sitting comfortably in his sitting room or on the throne. Samvisham, or lying on his bed. Tishthan, or staying anywhere. Bunjana, while eating. Paryatan, while walking or moving. Mahim, on the ground, going hither and thither. Chintayanaha, always inimically thinking of. Rishikesham, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of everything. Abhashyat, observed. Tatmayam, consisting of him Krishna, and nothing more. Jagat, the entire world. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All together, please. While sitting on his throne or sitting in his room, while lying on his bed, or indeed while situated anywhere, and while eating, sleeping, or walking, Kamsa saw only his enemy, the Supreme Lord Rishikesha. In other words, by thinking of his all-pervading enemy, Kamsa became unfavorably Krishna conscious. I was thinking to read together and then discuss because it's very good purport. Okay, you read. A little bit read, then we discuss.
Okay. Stop me whenever you
Okay.
Srila Rupa Goswami has described the finest pattern of devotional service as Anukulena Krishna Anushilana, or cultivating Krishna consciousness favorably. Kamsa, of course, was also Krishna conscious, but because he regarded Krishna as his enemy, even though he was fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, his Krishna consciousness was not favorable for his existence.
Haribol. So this is a very important line. I was reading this line and I started writing, and then I spent like 45 minutes just on this line, and I only had 15 minutes to prepare for the rest of the purport. So anyway, we'll make it a discussion. We'll add your points and let's see where it goes. So for this point, I was thinking, and I was reading what Prabhupada has written. We as devotees are supposed to think of Krishna favorably. But here, Krishna was thinking of him all the time. Kamsa. I said Kamsa. Oh, Kamsa was thinking of Krishna unfavorably, but all the time. So, usually, a definition of a devotee is that anyone who thinks of Krishna 24/7, who always remembers Krishna and never forgets him, right? And then Kamsa was doing that, always sitting, sleeping, eating, always. But here he was doing it unfavorably. He wanted to kill Krishna. He was thinking of him as his enemy, right? So now, like, Prabhupada has said that thinking of Krishna unfavorably is not bhakti. This is not bhakti yoga. Devotees, they do bhakti yoga while they think of Krishna all the time, 24/7. Sadatam kirtayanto man, as we been reading that verse for 1 month. Anyway. So, nitya yukta upasate also. These verses explain anyone thinks of me, they think of me from a very devotional perspective, they worship me. That's a devotee. But if you think of Krishna unfavorably, that is not bhakti. That's pratikulena, not anukulena, as Rupa Goswami has written. So I was reflecting on what Mahatma Prabhu was talking about in his initiation lecture of Dayamai Radhe Prabhu, when he was discussing the 10 offenses, and when he went to the 8th offense, that chanting the glories of Krishna to counteract the effects of sinful reactions, sinful actions. What's exactly the offenses? Do you remember?
Which one?
That eighth offense, which is
Committing offenses or
like chanting the glories of Krishna. Oh,
preaching of faithless?
on the strength of chanting the Krishna, committing sinful offenses. Yeah. So Prabhupada was saying that we cannot think of Krishna and also commit sin at the same time. Right? Mahatma Prabhu was explaining that this, like, you know how in some of the Christianity dominations, they have an idea of confession. Prabhupada was explaining that confession is good. It's good to confess, but not that you confess and also do the same thing again next week and confess again. That's not how it should be, right? And then he was saying that Srila Prabhupada has said that, like, whatever you do to counteract the sin that you're doing, if you're doing it on the strength of chanting the name, that's actually a bigger sin. For example, if let's say you did something today and then you went to Mangal Arti tomorrow with the consciousness that, oh, I will do some kirtan and that will counteract the reactions of all the sins I did. That's not how it works. Prabhupada has said that going to the act of going to Mangal Arti with that consciousness is actually a much bigger sin than whatever sin you ever committed. So yeah. I will add a very important point here, that let's say someone committed something that's abominable. Someone did something that's abominable, and now they're thinking, okay, wait, I did this. I cannot approach Krishna because it's like, if I approach him with the intention of counteracting those sins, then it's a much bigger sin, right? It's much bigger sin. Then that person is going to die in guilt of whatever he did, right? So in this context, if any of any of us ended up doing something that's abominable, we still should approach Krishna, but with a different consciousness, not with a consciousness of, like, okay, I'm approaching Krishna because I want to get rid of my karma associated with this sin. But approach Krishna with a very remorseful mood, that, oh Krishna, I've done this, and I don't know how to get out of the situation. Like, I need help. My senses are so overwhelming, or whatever help you need. With a remorseful mood, if you chant his name, that consciousness is okay to approach Krishna with, even after you've done anything abominable. Basically the consciousness shouldn't be like, I want to get rid of the karma, that's why I'm approaching you. So yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts on this?
Actually, this is very nice and important. And growing up in India, this is a very normal thing that people come into Prague and then they think that they can go and take bath in Mahakumbh, which happens once in, I don't know, 10 years or so.
12 years.
Yeah, and they assume that they'll go and then they'll wash their sins and then they'll be purified, and then they keep doing it. And Prabhupada actually talks about this either in Sri Upanishad or Nectar of Instruction. He calls this as a mad elephant offense. That, like, you know how an elephant takes bath in the water and then he comes out and then he put the sand again on his body. So so yeah, it's just a tendency. Of course, holy name is powerful, and Lord is very compassionate. But that's like taking Lord's mercy for granted, and actually that's an abusive behavior. That's like, even if I know, oh, my Lord will forgive, so let me just do something that will hurt him. Because when we commit any aparat intentionally, deliberately, not sometimes even things are said in anger which are not intentional. That's conditional. That's anartha. Even that is fine, but something which is done, let's say I'm deliberately breaking my fourth right, or deliberately doing something that displeases Lord. or annoyed, like, criticizing a devotee is an offense. And I know that it's hurting my Lord, but it's anyway, I have a good voice. I'll sing nice kirtan at 12 p.m. or 4 p.m. and then, Krishna will forgive me. So that's actually an abusive behavior. So it's like a reflection that we should see. If I'm doing this, then maybe somewhere I have an abusive behavior.
Thank you for taking all my script away.
Sorry, what is the script? Sorry.
No, but thank you for sharing that also. It is, yeah, it's because Mahatma Prabhu was also explaining that it's a relationship. With Krishna, when you chant your holy names, it's as if Krishna is present there, right? And think of someone you love, and then you did something to hurt them, and then you just go and take something like a flower bouquet or something and say, please take this and forgive me whatever you did. Like, forgive me for whatever I did. How does that like sound, Abusive, exactly. It's like you don't care about the person's feelings. You don't care about what they're feeling, So it's exactly like you said, abusive. And Krishna is a person. When you chant the holy name, he's present there. He's his incarnation in the name. And he's like, Krishna is like, okay, now you've called me. I'm here. I'm chanting. You're chanting my name. I'm here. Now talk to me. Mahatma was like, bolo, bolo. Now talk to me. And then you're like, please forgive me for whatever I did last Sunday. I'm chanting your names, so just forgive me. It's like Krishna is like, but what's your consciousness? Like, you're doing a business deal here, and that's not what Krishna wants. Krishna wants only your love. Even like, I'm just again referencing Mahatma Prabhu's lecture because that was very impactful. One of the Prabhupada disciple went to Radhakund. He was sharing that there he met some of the Babajis and they told him that, oh, you need to chant 64 rounds or otherwise you won't get anything. You won't be Krishna conscious, right? And then that devotee wrote a letter to Prabhupada saying, oh, Prabhupada, we need to chant 64 rounds. I heard it here, otherwise there's nothing happening. And Prabhupada was like, you cannot buy Krishna with some of the rounds, or you cannot buy Krishna with something. It has to be with love. Even if you chant 16 rounds with love, that's enough. That's Prabhupada's instruction, 16 rounds without any offense and 4 regs all your life is enough to take you back to Godhead. But there's a very fine print without offense, So, and with this, if you're doing this, like chanting the names to just counteract the sinful reaction, it's actually a very big offense. Like Prabhu just mentioned, mad elephant offense. So yeah. Yes?
I have a question. In this situation, Kamsa doesn't view Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead with that forgiveness mentality. So as he's committing sin and he's thinking of Krishna, he's not thinking of Krishna with the please forgive me mood. He's thinking of Krishna and I want to kill Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
So does that have different implications? Because he's not asking Krishna for anything at all. He just wants to kill Krishna.
Can you repeat? What's the question?
Kamsa isn't asking Krishna for forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he's committing a lot of sin.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to kill Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
So does that have different implications?
Yeah, I mean, he was thinking of Krishna unfavorably, so that did have different implication because I was going to talk about is that Krishna is merciful, like Prabhu mentioned, that even though people who were unfavorable to him, he gave them liberation. Putna, Kamsa, he gave them liberation. But the kind of liberation they got is not what devotees are desiring for. So that had different implication. Even though they got liberation, but they got impersonalist liberation. They've just merged in the Brahma Jyoti. They didn't go back to Godhead. Is that what you were asking? Okay. Any other points, Prabhu?
But Purna became mother, so devotees desired that.
Um, with Kamsa's case, I'm sure, and with Putna's case, I'm not sure if she had more births before achieving that, uh, um, position. With Kamsa's case, I'm sure Prabhupada has mentioned that he merged into Krishna. I read it. Sorry, he merged into Krishna's effulgence, which is Krishna. But he didn't go back to Godhead. With Putna's case, I'm not sure.
Krishna also didn't go back to God. Basically, it's whether it's Putna or Kansa. So you see that they're in ignorance. If you go and speak to an atheist, or even like, I don't know, some of your relatives or cousins, they'd be like, you're wasting your time by being a Hare Krishna. Right? So this is their ignorance. So Krishna is never, he doesn't hold a grudge. Because at some point we all chose to leave him, right? So Krishna is always forgiving. So whether it's Putna or whether it's Kansa, he's not having this feeling that I won't forgive them. And of course, these two are totally different scenarios, totally different cases, because Kansa's, it was like he's there to perform that. Like it's an arrangement. Like if you see before his life before, it wasn't anything as serious. I mean, he was actually taking his sister on the chariot, to her husband's home. So he was doing all his duties. He wasn't as demoniac as he became after he was threatened. He became defensive. So Krishna doesn't hold on to the conditioning, because we all are conditioned. But yeah, who goes back to Godhead, who doesn't go back to Godhead, that's definitely case by case scenario.
Yeah, it's his decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, you cannot be like why this person got this mercy and why this person did not. Like you cannot be like Ajamila just said Narayana 3 times and he got so much mercy. Like it's because Krishna, like if we put rules and regulations on Krishna, then how is he God? You know?
And he breaks rules.
And he breaks so many rules.
I'm not that far sighted, so of course we can find in scriptures where did they go or not. But for sure they did not get to experience the love for Krishna that devotees get to do in their lifetime too, right? That itself is such a, they missed out on that. So that itself means such a different implication to me.
Yeah.
Because they were living in hate the entire time. That's not a pleasant experience to me. And hateful for whom? One who can make you feel so much love.
Yeah. And it had different implication also, like with devotees, in the sense that when they think of Krishna favorably, they're always happy, they're always in bliss. And here, if you read purport more, Prabhupada has explained that he was always fearful, always feeling like his life is in danger, running around, just like, those kind of stories in which there's a person and he's like, ghosts are going around and thinking what's happening, like that kind of, you can imagine that was how Kamsa was, thinking of like Yamaraj Dutas, like everybody is coming down to kill him. So yeah, always fearful, always in anxiety. Any other points?
I just have a follow-up. Because from Prabhu's question, she was said Putna also didn't went back to Godhead, but at the same time, it is mentioned because I was listening to this lecture by Radha Govind Maharaj. He was mentioning that Putna got, I think it was the commentary of either Rupa Goswami or either Harishwariji, and she got equal position as Mother Yashoda in the spiritual world. And then at the same time, it was mentioned that after reading this only, Parikshit Maharaj, he become more confirmed that okay, Krishna is better than the Brahma realization.
I mean, even in Kamsa, so even he got like back to Godhead in Vaikuntha after some lifetimes. But with Putna's case also, that I'm not sure. That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure. She might have gone back to Godhead, and I know I've heard that as well. But how many lifetimes it took, I'm not sure. Yeah.
I think for Putana, the difference was that she did not have an intention to serve Krishna, but when she started feeding Krishna, even just for a split second, her consciousness became that of a mother. Because I'm not sure if this, I'm just making this up, but like before she became demoniac, she always had the desire to be a mother. And so in like a twisted way, Krishna was fulfilling this desire even though she became very demoniac. So even just for 1 second, because her consciousness became that of a mother and she was feeding Krishna, she was able to get slightly more, I guess, liberation.
We can look more. We can look more into it. But thank you for sharing, everybody. Maybe we can read more per. Do you want to read? Okay. No, Krishna consciousness favorably cultivated.
Krishna consciousness favorably cultivated makes one completely happy. So much so that a Krishna conscious person does not consider Kaivalya Sukham or merging into the existence of Krishna to be a great gain. Kaivalya Narakayate. For a Krishna conscious person, even merging into the existence of Krishna or Brahma as impersonalist aspect to truth is uncomfortable. Kaivalyam Narakayate Tridasa Pur Akasha Pushpayate. Karmis anchored to be promoted to the heavenly planets, but a Krishna conscious person considers such promotion a will for the whips, good for nothing. Yogis try to control their senses and thus become happy. But a Krishna conscious person neglects the methods of yoga. He is unconcerned with the greatest of enemies, the senses, which are compared to snakes. For a Krishna conscious person who is cultivating Krishna consciousness favorably, the happiness conceived by the karmis, jnanis, or yogis is treated as less than a fig. Comes up, however, because of cultivating Krishna consciousness in a different way, that is, inimically, was uncomfortable in all the affairs of his life. Whether sitting, sleeping, walking, or eating, he was always in danger. This is the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. A non-devotee or atheist also cultivate God consciousness by trying to avoid God in everything. For example, so-called scientist who wants to create life by a combination of chemicals regard the external material elements as supreme. Such scientists do not like the idea that the life is part and parcel of Supreme Lord. As clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita,
Mameva Vamsho Jiva Luke Jiva Bhuta.
the living entity do not arise from a combination of material elements such as earth, water, air, and fire, but the separated portions of Supreme Personality of God. If one can understand the position of living entity as separated portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by studying the nature of living entity, one can understand the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since the living entity is fragmental sample of the Godhead, but because atheists are not interested in God consciousness, they try to be happy by cultivating Krishna consciousness in unfavorable ways.
So yeah, very nicely Prabhupada has explained that how atheists, they try to avoid Krishna consciousness in all aspects. I was reflecting on it that sometimes when we go for book distribution, or when we approach people, and as soon as they get to know that it's anything related to God, it's like, oh, we don't need it, we're good, you know? and it's like, no, you need it, you're not good because you think you're God, you know? So it's like, you definitely need it because you don't know you're part and parcel of this God. And so they consciously try to avoid God in everything. So they're also Krishna conscious, but in unfavorable way. God conscious is in an unfavorable way, like trying to avoid it, you know. Yeah. Anything anybody like to add? Any questions? Okay. So yeah, as I was also explaining that we as devotees do not desire merging into the existence of Krishna also. It's like a narka, it's like a hell for us. Narka, it's like a hell for us, you know. So even though karmis, they want to be promoted to heavenly planets, but Krishna conscious person thinks of it as good for nothing. We don't want to go back to heavenly planets because we know that's not what we desire. We want to go back to Godhead, where Krishna is there in his two-handed form, and we can play with him. We can I don't know, just treat him as a friend, as a lover, as a son, you know. It's just so beautiful. That exchange is so beautiful. Like, I cannot imagine just living a life without any emotions. Like, it's very bland. It's very bland. Yeah, I was reading that. Like when you go back to Godhead, the Gop Kumaras, they think of Krishna as one of himself. You know, the gopis think of Krishna as they're part of him. They're just one. You know, so whatever they eat, they offer it to Krishna. Even if they've eaten half of an apple, they would just give it to Krishna. You can eat it. We're the same person, you know. It's like that. In Vaikuntha, the mood is not like that. It's very awe and reverential. You know, it's like, oh Krishna, you're, oh Narayana, you're something very there, and I'm your servant. Servant mood is also there in Golok, but it's very sweet. The exchanges are very sweet, and it's very different. So devotees want that. Devotees doesn't want that just merging into the Brahman or the light of Krishna and staying there for thousands and thousands of years without feeling anything. Because people in this world think that they want to get rid of the miseries, and they think the way that they can do it is by being suffering less. Suffering less is happiness. They don't have a broader idea of what happiness actually is. They think of happiness as negation of suffering, which is how people think happiness is, you know, and that's not how devotees think happiness is. Happiness is, even suffering in Krishna consciousness is happiness, because it brings you bliss. You know, we'll read about Rupa Goswami also in further of this purport, and we see he left everything. He was a minister. I think Sarthak Prabhu was giving a class the other day, and he was explaining how much wealthy he was, you know, and they were training for Krishna consciousness in secret. They had a forest like Vrindavan built at the back of their house, wherever they had place, and kundas, different kundas, just so they can remember Krishna, even while doing all the things for the king, the Muslim king. They were always very Krishna conscious, and yeah, they didn't need anything. He left everything, all that opulence, just to serve Krishna. As soon as he realized, there's also a very beautiful story of how he realized that he's serving like a dog or a slave for the king. He was going in a stormy night in a palanquin to the king, because king had summoned him about something. And then when he was going, he heard two washermen talking. The guy said to his wife that, "Oh, we can hear these noises of someone going around, and who is this person at the dead of the night with such a bad weather is going somewhere? What kind of reason must be?" And then the woman replied that, "Oh, it must be a thief or a dog or a slave of a king." As soon as Rupa Goswami heard this, he was like, "Yeah, this woman is saying right. Like a dog, like the owner of the dog, as soon as he calls him, the dog goes. You know, very loyal to the owner. And the slave, I'm like a slave, even though I'm like at a bigger position, but I'm like a slave." So he's like, "I've had enough, I understand. I'm going to leave everything and serve Krishna." That's how he had his awakening for this. And for them, it's like suffering is bliss. Suffering is bliss. That's what devotees also understand. They say that Krishna, even if we are in hell, if we are serving you, we're okay with that. You know, our gurus, our acharyas, like they were all eternal associates of Krishna in Golok. But they came down to help us go back because that makes Krishna happy. You know, as soon as more people, as conditioned souls, like they go back to Godhead after removing all the conditionings, Krishna is happy seeing them. Like Mahatma Prabhu was like giving a pastime of Gopakumara. Like when Gopakumara went back to Godhead, Krishna was like, welcome, welcome, my child. I'm so fortunate to see you again. Thank you for coming back. Now, please don't leave me. Please don't leave me. Like Krishna is begging to see us. And when acharyas see that, oh, Krishna is so happy when these jivas go back, so we're going to facilitate this, if that makes Krishna happy. So, yeah. And for Rupa Goswami, that's what he did. Like, he didn't accept like a Babaji Vesh, you know? Like, he wasn't renounced in the sense that he was just thinking of his own sadhana. He was very much concerned about all the jivas. You know, he wrote so many scriptures, he wrote so much so that people understand what's the real deal, why they're here, what's the purpose of human life, you know? And when we think of Prabhupada was given so many facilities by Krishna, you know, sometimes it's hard for us to understand Prabhupada's position. Like, you know, he was saying that we had 10 cars in every temple. It's like so much facility, but Prabhupada also used it in service of Krishna. You know, he was a modern Goswami, you can say that. Yeah, so it's like at the end Prabhupada write that even when a devotee is superficially put into a great difficulty, he's never disturbed. Like same like Prabhupada. He was put into difficulties as when he came to America, he had to go through so many things. He wasn't disturbed to the point where he's like, I don't want to do this service. Like he didn't leave his service. He was always, that's my guru's order. That's my guru's order and I have to do it. I have to do it. And then Krishna reciprocated also. So, bliss or suffering in Krishna consciousness, both are blissful for a devotee. But for non-devotees, this world is full of problems, as Prabhupada writes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like even little problems for non-devotees become a very big thing. Like outside, if you go and it's just the mind makes things very big, and they don't have the tools to deal with those things. So then it becomes a very like this world is just full of problems for them, as Prabhupada has written. For devotees, they understand the philosophy. They understand that Krishna is there to take care of them. So it's very much manageable in that sense. Yeah, and when it's not manageable, Krishna has given us the tools to manage. He's sent us acharyas, He's sent us scriptures, He's sent us so many resources that we can refer to so that we are able to deal with our things. But it's so unfortunate that non-devotees or atheists, they don't want to take this mercy. That's why devotees are merciful and they go out and distribute that mercy, even at the expense of being insulted, being disregarded, disrespected sometimes. So yeah. Anything else that anybody would like to add? Any questions? Okay. Yes.
How can you do? What is thinking of Krishna unfavorably looks like?
One is like I mentioned that thinking of Krishna as a business deal, Like, you're doing some things that you know that are not right, and you know they're not scripturally correct, but then you think that, oh, I'm a devotee, I chant, I go for Mangalarti, doesn't matter whatever else I do, I'm doing the good stuff. So not going to, Krishna will not be that harsh with me, how he's with, he's not harsh, he's just giving out the results of the karma that everybody did. But devotee unfavorably thinking is like thinking that, oh, I won't get the same result as other people are getting because I do all this devotional service. That's thinking of Krishna unfavorably.
I feel like it's thinking of Krishna unfavorably is more towards like being on the envious side, like thinking of Krishna as an enemy or someone with whom I have to compete and beat. So I feel like it's more of that. If you are even coming to Mangalarti with that consciousness, you're not enviable towards Krishna. You still see him as supreme. You still know that, oh, he's the one who can take away my sins. So I don't think so that is thinking of Krishna as unfavorably, but the act is unfavorable for sure for their bhakti as well as Krishna.
I think it's because if you're chanting with that consciousness, and holy name is Harinam Prabhu, that's Krishna himself. So if you're using it as a way to counteract your sin, that's unfavorable. Like in a relationship, if you're using the other person as a means to get something that you want, that's very selfish. That's unfavorable. Like, you're not caring about the other person's feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, Monal, my question actually was serving unfavorably. So what she's saying makes sense for serving unfavorably.
Also, when you were saying that envious, I think
That is also serving
that is also serving unfavorably in the sense that, let's say something is not going your way, and you think Krishna is in the way of things not going right for you. So you're thinking, he's the controller. Like, why is he controlling my life? That's enviousness. I want to control my life. That's also unfavorable thinking of Krishna. Yeah, I think.
Getting upset with the Lord after continuously making a prayer and it's not being fulfilled. So it's just an interesting topic. Like, we focus a lot on serving favorably. What does serving unfavorably looks like? Criticizing devotees. I know I'm still being in the movement, which is fine, but it slows down your process, or offending Vaishnavas maybe.
Yeah, like basically whatever he's saying to do, you know what you're doing is wrong and you know what is right, but you're still not doing it the right way because you think he is merciful. Like thinking of him as basically your father. Let's say you're a child and you did something and you're like, my father will take care. You know how those politician kids that are given example of in India is like, do you know who my father is? After committing such a big thing. So it's like that. It's like that. It's very bad. You had a point.
You answered my question.
Oh, okay.
I have another question. So, if the situations are distressful, then it's understandable that these are the arrangement of Krishna. But if another person is deliberately putting distress on us, how do we consider that? Like, you mentioned the point like happiness and distress are both useful for a devotee. So, if someone is putting distress on us deliberately, how do we consider that as useful?
So in Kunti Maharani prayers, Kunti Maharani was referring to that, like she was being put in distress again and again by the Kauravas. Draupadi was disrespected, Pandavas were, like Bhim was fed poison laddu, they were put in Lakshagriha, the house of wax. So all their sufferings were from external things, they were being put into distress again and again. But then she writes very beautiful thing that, and I asked this to Mahatma Prabhu again, like how do you be happy in that process when you're going through that thing? He said, be very happy, be very blissful that Krishna is giving you personal attention. Because when you are going through that distress, Krishna is personally present. Your prayers become so strong that Krishna has no other choice but to come. So that distress isn't actually a very good thing, but the end result or what you get from that distress is far more than the distress itself when you look back. Because Kunti Mahani was like, if this distress meant that I could see you again and again, please give me more of this distress. Because that distress becomes very insignificant when Krishna is present. Basically, your prize is presence of Krishna, that personal reciprocation of Krishna with you during those distressing times.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, I think we're above time, and thank you everybody for adding. Thank you so much. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha.